That finishes the roll call, doesn't it? He said. Everybody's involved now, and I doubt if even that smart young man of yours, Lou, ever had anything like it. He is smart, but he is not my young man, doctor. Well, I hope to God he will be, he said, tapping his fingers on his bag as usual. Too many virgins here now, and not only the unmarried ones at that. Virginity is a state of mind, when all's said and done. But to get back to your young man, if Holmes was murdered it begins to look like a syndicate, and I think myself he was. Why a syndicate? Well, take the average killer, the fellow who takes life the way he'd take a dose of salts. He's got his method and he sticks to it. The hammer killer sticks to his hammer, the rod man to his gun, and the bag murderer puts all his victims in sacks and leaves them around somewhere. But what have we got here? An axe, a pistol, a poker and probably an automobile. Let your criminologist make something out of that if he can. Not that he decried criminology, he said. It was a new profession and a hard one. Fellow's got to be an expert in a lot of things, he said. Got to know everything from ballistics and chemistry to blood stains and fingerprints, also photomicrography, which is a big word you needn't bother about. But he's got to know psychology too, and that's where most of them fall down. They forget that most of us are naturally aggressive, and that enough repression of all the aggressive instincts drives us to extreme violence the moment we get upset. Even to murder. Your criminologist forgets that. He's dedicated to pure fact. A conclusion which would have been borne out, had he known it, by what I now know to have been Herbert Dean's occupation that morning. He was, as a matter of fact, bending over that white shirt of Holmes's, examining the tire marks under a microscope and then photographing and enlarging them. The result was a teletype from headquarters ordering a search for a small light truck, showing signs of having been driven through tar, and of which the right front tire was of a certain designated make and carried embedded in it a short nail with a broken head. That was at noon on Thursday. Mother had not returned at lunchtime, nor by 2 o'clock, when she was due at the Lancasters', so I telephoned to Lydia Talbot that she had been called downtown, and Lydia agreed to substitute for her. Somewhat later, however, she appeared at the house and said that her sister-in-law had gone instead. Hester seems to think I've been butting in where I'm not wanted, she said. And she's so queer. Really, Louisa, I feel as though I've got to get away from here. I've got to. My nerves are going. I told Hester this morning and she's furious. She says she's given me a home for more than 20 years, and that's true. But a home isn't a life. I'm not as young as I used to be, and it's like living in a jail. I don't care where I go. I have a little money, and I can still work. I work where I am for that matter, only I don't get paid for it. Her voice was more bitter than her words. All my life I had seen her about, had known her as well as any woman of my age could know a woman of 50 or so. Her thin figure plodding on its innumerable errands was almost as familiar to me as my mother's. But now she looked actually desperate. I'm sure it hadn't been easy, I agreed. Easy? It's been plain hell. As though John Talbot would ever come back and bother her again, or want even to see her. The house locked and barred as though, she caught herself then, and I saw that her face was twitching. I'll have to get away, Louisa, she said. Look at me. And she won't let me go. Do you mean, I said, that she has locked herself away all these years from your brother? I didn't say that, she said more calmly. No. She knows he wouldn't do her any harm. He was the gentlest soul alive. She lowered her voice and looked about her. Sometimes I worry about Hester, Louisa. She's not herself. She's very queer sometimes, and lately I've thought even Lizzie is not herself. Maybe I'm only nervous, but